This video is over the triangular trade and slavery in colonial America. At this station, you will use this video to fill in your notes. Anything in red is something you should write down, and we want to make sure it's correct because it will be tested. So it's important that you have the right information and that you study. Triangular trade. The principle of triangular trade was that the different regions would trade goods that they had in abundance in exchange for those goods which were scarce in their own region. For example, in the New England colonies, due to the dense forest, they had an abundance or extra lumber. They would then send that lumber to Europe, where Europe was in need of lumber for shipbuilding and other products. Trade routes linked the American colonies, West Indies, Africa, and England. If this video is moving too quickly, pause the video, fill in your notes, and when you are ready to continue, hit play. The combination of triangular trade and mercantilism ensured that gold, silver, and all English money stayed in England. I always tell my students we say mercantilism because the colonies can't trade with any other country other than the mother country. The colonies exist to benefit the mother country by sending raw materials and acting as a market for the mother country to sell their manufactured goods. Natural resources and cash crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton were sent to Europe and sold. Manufactured goods from Europe, including textiles, cloth, rum, and weapons, were used to purchase Africans who were kidnapped and sent in slavery to the Americas. Transatlantic slave trade. The forced movement of people from Africa to North and South America to work as slaves as part of the triangular trade is known as the transatlantic slave trade. It is also called the Middle Passage. You can see in the picture on the left that they are crossing the Atlantic Ocean. African slaves were treated harshly during their time on the Middle Passage. They dealt with horrible conditions due to limited fresh air, poor sanitation, and extremely cramped living spaces. Of the 10 to 16 million Africans who survived the voyage to the New World, between 60 and 70% ended up in Brazil or the sugar colonies of the Caribbean. Only 6% arrived in what is now the United States. Yet by the 1860s, approximately 2/3 of all New World slaves lived in the American South. Slavery in colonial times. Slavery existed in every region of colonial America. However, the further south one traveled, the more dominant slavery became due to the physical geography of each region. Why would this be true? Let's look at each region. New England. Lack of year-round agriculture made slave ownership unprofitable. Slavery was still legal and practiced in New England, just not as common. Slaves often worked as household servants, assistant craftsmen, or worked at the ports. Middle region. Moderate climate and medium-sized farms made some ownership of slaves profitable. More slaves than New England, but fewer than South. Members of the Quaker religion often settled in the middle colonies and were opposed to slavery, which also made it less popular. Southern region. Largest percentage of slaves due to year-round growing season of cash crops. Plantation system was dependent on large labor force, especially tobacco production. As the demand for cash crops increased, the demand for slave labor increased. If I look at this map of African Americans in the 13 colonies in the 17th and 18th century, and as I start in the north near New Hampshire, and I move south towards North Carolina, I see the African American population increase. Now prove your understanding of today's lesson by using the map in your notes to answer these questions. Number 1. What was transported from the 13 colonies to Great Britain? Number 2. What was transported from Great Britain to the 13 colonies? Number 3. What was the name for the portion of the triangular trade in which enslaved persons were transported from Africa to the Americas. Question 4. Make a generalization between slavery and the physical geography of the colonial regions. Question 5. Other than physical geography, why did the middle colonies have fewer slaves? Use this image. You can go back in the video and use your notes to answer these questions. Now that you are done, go to the GimKit link, tinyurl.com/unit1review.gk. This is a great way to review, but it should not be the way you study. Study your notes to be successful on the unit test.